again for another tackle test. I love shady pockets and I love new lures. And we are back out here. Another trusty missile bag full of brand new baits that we are gonna test out here in this shallow water, and then we'll try to show you what they look like underwater so you can get a good idea of what they are all about. So in my little sack here, we got some crankbaits that I have been wanting to try for a while. We've got a topwater bait that I had never seen before, so I went add to cart when I saw it online. And then we've got some new Gamakatsu rigs called the Jika. I would call that Jika because in Japan, the rig this is known from is the Jika rig with a J, but this is Gamakatsu. So Gamakatsu, everything's a G, right? G finesse. So why not have your Jika rig start with a G? You know, they did that because they can. So that's what we're going to start with. And this is, they've got different sizes. This is a 2/0 with 1/8 ounce sinker, and they've got 4/0 with a 1/4 ounce sinker, 2/0 with a, I mean, they got different sizes with different weights and different size hooks. I'll tell you what, we're going to start with the 2/0. It's got a 2/0 EWG hook, and then that is on their welded ring. And then as you can see off the welded ring, there is a weight that spins, and as you can see, you know, if you can see up close, it's got 3/16 on there, so you can tell which weight it is. I love that feature. This is again a heavy Superline version, the heavy version of the, you know, best-selling EWG hook is a 2/0. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna tie this on. I've got a jig rod here, and I had a chatterbait stealth on there from fishing, doing another tackle test. But what we're gonna do is we're not gonna tie to the hook. We are gonna tie directly to this ring that the hook and the weight are attached to. We're gonna tie to that welded ring. That is a trip welded ring. No, I mean, that is a welded ring, not a Weldon. Different. Sorry, Trip, I wasn't trying to call you out. But it just gets on the tongue when you see that name and hear it all the time. Fishing the Bassmaster Elite Series. So, did a little San Diego jam knot on there. 14-pound test. I cut off the tag end, so now that's what you have. I have got, just so happens I've got a Missile Baits Quiver 6.5. This is probably a bait that I would highly recommend putting on a rig like this, and I will show you why. But I'm gonna put that on there just like so, and then I'm gonna rig it Texposed. This hook is plenty big enough to do that. I'm gonna go right up in there, and then that's what it's gonna look like once I get it tied on. I've got myself in a bind. There we go. That's what it's gonna look like right there. And what it's gonna do is gonna help keep the bait off the bottom. So if you're throwing it in, you know, muddy bottoms or you know, around grass, it keeps your bait off that bottom and it keeps it horizontal. If you Texas rig that or fish it, you know, in a traditional weight forward design, the worm's gonna stay nose down, and then you're gonna lift it up, and then it's gonna go nose down again. But this way, the worm kind of stays in a horizontal fashion, and it allows it to undulate while it's in the water. So let's see what it looks like. All right, so I'm gonna just pitch it out here. Look at it in the water. I mean, I like it a lot. I have fished a homemade Jika rig a fair amount. Fished a Tokyo rig quite a bit. And, you know, this is different than a Tokyo rig. The Tokyo rig has a swivel above the hook in which you tie to that swivel, and it also has a longer wire so that you can adjust the weights. Some people just want a rig that you just tie on. You don't have to fool with the weights. This rig, you can take the weight off. I don't know if I can do it without pliers, but you can unhook that and take that weight off and put a heavier weight on there, put a different size weight on there. That is, this rig is adjustable. It's not totally locked in. But that's the Jika rig from Gamakatsu, and again, you know, that's one of the most trusted hooks out there on the market. In the water, this bait looks really good. The bait and the whole combination. So this is something that I'm gonna be using when I'm fishing around, let's say, you know, cypress trees. Those things are awful for your bait getting hung up. But with this having the weight below, I think your bait's gonna come through those knees a lot better. Actually, I know it will, because I've fished a lot of cypress trees with a rig like this. And anytime I'm fishing around, you know, like marshy banks, marshy bottoms, and I want to have my bait, you know, up off the bottom. And then the other deal is that hook, being that it's on the ring, it can freely swing and freely have its action. And you can fish, it doesn't matter really if you put this on 12-pound test, 14-pound test, or 20-pound test, because that hook is going to be freely swinging on the ring, not when you're tied directly to the hook. So you can fish a little heavier line if you need to or want to, and still have plenty of action in your bait. So that's the Gamakatsu Gika Rig. I don't know how much they cost, but there's 2 in a pack, and you know, I've got the 2-aught and the 4-aught. Those are the ones I've seen. This is, I mean, I'm going to be leaving these in the boat, keeping them in there. Definitely not taking those out. So definitely something to add to the arsenal. And these things come through brush piles really well. So keep that in mind if you're a big brush pile bro, or dudette, or broette, whatever the female version of a bro is. If you're one of those people, you might want to keep that in mind. And then we're going to go next to the Topwater, and this is the Catwalk. We're going to the Catwalk with Fritts Side Fred. I mean, 6 cents. It's a 6 cents Catwalk. I saw this online, and I said, man, they have got other topwater baits. So when a company has an existing walking topwater bait, or an existing bait in a category, and they come out with a different one or a new one, that really tends to pique my interest, because I'm thinking there's got to be something different and better, new. This is called Spanish Bone. I don't know if that was one of Fritts Side Fred's other songs, or if that's just like an ode to Don Quixote, or I don't know. But it's got a deep, I like the rattle. It's a deep rattle. Most of the rattles in topwater baits nowadays are real high pitch, but this one's deep, and it's kind of slender. Let's see, what's the length on this puppy? It's 116 mm's, and it's 5/8 of an ounce. It's got some good weight to it, but it's 116. If you're familiar with most jerk baits are 110 millimeters. I think the Zero Spook's around 120, if I'm not, to the traditional, the big one. The smaller ones are around 100, so it's kind of an in-between topwater walking bait size. It comes, which is interesting to me, it comes with 3 short shank EWG treble hooks on there. I wouldn't put those on there preferably, but it's got 3 hooks on there. And I would assume that Casey and the gang at 6 Cents have done their testing, and that's the hooks they prefer to put on the bait, so that's why they put those hooks on there. So I'm going to put this on some braided line, and I'm just going to, this 30-pound Sunline braid, that's what I throw most all my walking topwater baits with. I'm just going to, I got to get a lot of line because I'm going to do a Palomar knot and go all the way around this bait. And there we go. Going all the way around. It's the X Plasma braid from Sunline. It is extremely strong, and 30 pounds, got a pretty small diameter, casts really well. That's what you want to have. So I'm gonna see what's up with this bait. It definitely has a good casting ability. I need to cast it further than that. Man, it's got some really strong side-to-side action. Interesting, to me it has the combination of like the Sammy from back in the day, but it has the spit and walk of like a Zerispook. So it's not, those hooks are sharp, that's no joke about it. But it's got a really nice walk and sachet, and it has a tendency to roll. When you're twitching it back and forth, it rolls and then it pops back up. This bait's got a lot of action. I think it's gonna give the Nick Knocker and the Vixen a run for its money in this category, as far as I'm concerned. Really nice action on this bait. I like the in-between size. I think, you know, it'll be tremendous for smallmouth as well as largemouth and spots, especially with the 3 hooks. I really like the 3 treble hooks on baits like this. So good job, Casey and the dudes over at 6 Cents on the Catwalk. I'm not so sure about that name, bro, but I guess it's catchy, right? On the catwalk is on the cat. Yeah, that's what you're singing when you're fishing it. And as long as the bass come up and crush it, you can sing it and look like an idiot and wear one of them sleeveless netted shirts like Right Said Fred did in that video, and you bring 25 pounds to the scales, most people are not gonna say a word to you. So that's what that's all about. So the last bait we're gonna do here in the tackle test, the very last one is actually 3. And I was gonna do just one, and then I realized it's a whole series, and they've actually added to the series since. And I don't know, maybe I'm just behind the curve a little bit, but my trusted missile bag, that right there, is, look at this dude. Talk about legends. Holy smoky cows. David Fritts, buddy, he is a plug thrower if there's ever been a plug thrower. And this is the Fritts Side. John Cox has just smoked people with this thing. There's the 9, the 7, and the 5. And when I realized that there was 3 different sizes, I figured I better get all 3. So I'm gonna start with the in-between size. And oh Lord, and before anybody gets too sidetracked about this whole situation, I designed the Spro Little Johns, and we have a whole series, and we're adding on to it constantly. These are a good bit different, and like most of these new Berkeley baits, the packages are hard as crap to get into. So I'm just going to go ahead and sorry, oh, I didn't cut David's face. That's great news for me, because I don't like to cut people's faces off when I open up their packages. But I'm going to just chop that open with my scissors. It makes it a lot easier to get out. But I'm going to start with this number 7, and it says it's a plastic bait. There's no rattles. I mean, that little paint job is pretty. I think my buddy Mike designed all these paint jobs. He is a very good painter. But this color is called Brown Crawl. That's all they could come up with, but it looks very spicy. It is slow rise, so it's, you know, when you stop reeling it rises real slow. It runs 5 to 7 feet. It's 3/7 of an ounce. What is it? 3/7? What is this? Like lowest common denominator? I don't know how much that is. 12 grams. That's what it is, and it says silent, which I like. So I like silent crankbaits, especially in the pre-spawn or when I want to throw something a little different. As you can see, it's got what they call a coffin-shaped bill on the front, and it's got a little weight right there, and then it's got these little openings right there where you can see where weight is in the very belly of this. This is some total Fritz crap right here. I don't mean crap like it's a crappy bait. I mean crap like crazy crap. Because I can't say the S word on YouTube or Facebook or social media. I guess you can, but I don't like to. I'm just tying this on 12-pound Sunline Sniper. Got it on my trusty Cashin square bill rod. Figure this is a good all-around rod to throw this on. Now I'm gonna just kind of zip it out here and see what it looks like. Very, kind of what I expected. Very tight wiggle. Very tight wiggle. This bait just vibrates back and forth, and it definitely has that slow, very slow rise. Kind of like the Little John, Spro Little Johns, the same way, have that slow rise. but we don't have anything that's this subtle of a crankbait. This is definitely going to be a pre-spawn wintertime type crankbait. When they don't want that harder, they don't want that wiggle wart rock crawler type stronger action, it'd be a good contrast to that. But that's the 7. My guess is because it runs about 7 feet. You Canadians, you can understand that, right? A boat. And now I'm gonna go up to the 9. Looks like a little bigger bait, and it says it runs 7 to 10 foots, and it's a 1/2 ounce. Now we're talking. I know what a 1/2 ounce is. So I'm gonna open this with my trusty scissors. Don't worry, that landed in the boat. Pry that out. Don't worry, I didn't cut David's face. And again, it's just a larger version of that coffin bill. Line ties very close to the nose of the bait. The further you get that position up, the more the bait really wants to swim. And I'm guessing with how subtle this bait is, they had to keep that line tie back closer to the body to give it enough vibration. And I'm gonna tie this bad boy on, and I'm feeling really confident about myself right now because I got that line threaded through there very easily without having to put on reader glasses, and that's cool and whatnot because my eyes are starting to go bad. But I'm gonna get that bad boy tied up, cut the tag end off of this 9. It's the old Berkeley Fritzside. And I can see it's already got that slow flow. I mean, it's actually suspending. It's not a slow rise. It might even be sinking. It's very slowly sinking. Very odd. But either way, I'm sure it's a fish catcher. Because it's a bigger bait, it's got a little more vibration. But this is going to be key. It's still very subtle for as big and as much surface area as this crankbait has on the sides. Of the sides, it has that side to side. It doesn't have a ton of roll. It has just enough, and it's very subtle. It wants to have just a little bit of that side to side and a little bit of roll. But again, since it's a bigger profile, that's a lot of surface area on the side there. So any amount of vibration on this big surface area is going to cause a good amount of disturbance down there. So there is some decent resistance. I would guess this bait to definitely run in that 10 foot range. It looks like it's getting down pretty quick just right here beside the boat. So that could very well be a good pre-spawn crankbait around some rock, fishing them rocky banks. Again, another good alternative to that hard wide wobble of a rock crawler or wiggle wart or whatever you like to throw in that area. But this is a little bit different. This is the Fritts Side 5. I think this one came along a little after, but don't quote me on that because I'm not totally familiar with all these Berkeley products. I've just heard so much buzz about the Fritts Sides. I had to get out here and try it for myself, and then wanted to share my thoughts with you as I did it. That's a very good looking paint job. Again, my buddy Mike Russell, I think, designed those. I'm probably not even supposed to tell anybody that, but I did, so it's out there. Sorry, but he's a very very good painter. But this is a totally different bill. This is more like it's not a Little John, because a Little John has a flatter bill angle than this. It's more like a speed trap. It's like the small speed trap, but it's in a thin body. So this is very interesting to me. I'm really wanting to see how this thing runs in the water. I don't know if it's going to run like an old Lure Jensen speed trap. That's kind of what I'm guessing that they went after, because it will have that more subtle vibration and action. Great shallow pre-spawn crankbait, and it's not going to spook or scare the fish going out there. But here we are. Let's see what this bad boy looks like. It's got more vibration than I thought, to be honest. I expected it to be a little more subtle. It's not like the Little John. Actually, the Little John is more subtle. This runs more like It runs like a hard wobbling version of a speed trap. Not a uh-oh, I threw it right in the tree. It's not a square bill, but it's in that realm. It's interesting. The bait has a lot of side-to-side kick. It runs like it swims. It has a lot of swimming action to it. For a bait that has the line tie that goes into the body, these type of baits are harder to get to run correctly. This one is very interesting. I didn't expect this to have this much of a hard side-to-side action. It actually runs more like an old flat-sided balsa bait, one of those, you know, a higher river type crankbaits. That's what this runs more like, but it's odd because it has this speed trap shaped bill. So very, very different. I'm going to look at it one more time and then give you my final thoughts on the Fritts Side 5. Yeah, this thing runs a lot like those flat-sided balsa baits that you know, you catch them on the rivers and stuff with. I'll bet you this thing, throwing it around shallow water, will work in a lot of different instances when those fish are real shallow. And then let's see, what did the package say? It says 2 to 5 feet. I bet you it's going to be tough to get below 5 feet, and it says it's 1/3 of an ounce, which I don't know what that is. That's more than a quarter, but it's not as much as 3/8. It's 2/6. Okay, but it's 10 grams. There it is, 10 grams, and it's silent. So I like the silent part of it. I don't know that it's going to replace anything for me in my tackle box, but it might be something for certain people to take a look at. And again, a lot of the reasons I get out here and test crankbaits that are not a Spro crankbait, that are not baits that I have designed, because I'm just fascinated with different shapes, different bill angles, different line tie positions, and how they affect crankbaits. And you know, this has been a very popular crankbait. I haven't seen as much out of this 5 as I have out of the 7 and even the 9. The 7 and the 9 are like mainstays on David Fritz's boat. He still fishes the Elite Series, and I get to see what's on the front of his boat. And all spring he's been throwing them 2 crankbaits. I promise you, I've seen him on his deck about every time I've seen him out there. We got caught in a rainstorm together at Lake Eufaula. We pulled up next to each other under a dock while this massive rainstorm came through. And even in June on Eufaula, he had a 7 and a 9 on the front of his boat, along with some other dredgers and other deeper crankbaits that he fishes. I think Berkeley makes. But those are the Fritts Sides. Kind of wanted to see what those are all about. They're pretty much what I expected. And as you can imagine, from something from David Fritts, it's gonna run well. Just again, fills in a niche as a plastic bait that's not out there on the market. So I hope you enjoyed this tackle test. This tackle test number 11. We've got 10 other ones already on the web somewhere if you want to look and find those. And if you want to see any other baits, or if you have anything, if you tell me you've caught fish on the Fritts Side, I want to hear about it down in the comments. If you've caught any fish on the Catwalk, I want to hear about that. And if you've already caught fish on a Jika rig, I want to hear about that as well. So please hit it up down there in the comments. As always, thanks for watching.